Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining. We are just going to wait a couple more minutes here for attendees to continue trickling in, so stay tuned. All right, I'm sure we will have some more attendees kind of trickling in as we begin, but thank you again, everyone, for joining. Today, our webinar is going to discuss how OpenText uses Devo to score higher on MITRE ATT&CK evaluations. And now I will begin with going over some of our speakers that we have here today. From the OpenText team, we have Fabian Franco and Kevin Golaz. Fabian is the Senior Manager of Digital Forensics and Incidental Response, and Kevin Golaz is the Global Head of Cybersecurity Services at OpenText. And my fellow team member here today is Adam Foyt, the Manager of our Technical Marketing at Devo. Just to go over today's agenda, we're going to begin by talking about the combined power of Devo and OpenText, which I have already started to do. And then Adam is going to go into an overview of the Devo MITRE ATT&CK Advisor, where he will then pass it to the OpenText team to talk about how they've been able to leverage Devo during their MITRE ATT&CK evaluation. And then they will also go through a walkthrough of the MITRE ATT&CK and explain how they've been able to leverage the Devo endpoint user agents to pull in raw telemetry. And then finally, we will wrap up with a Q&A session. And as questions arise during the session, if you want to drop them in the Q&A chat, I can go through all of them at the end. But now I'm going to pass it over to my teammate, Adam.
Thank you, Shannon. So we're really excited about this webinar today. We're excited to team up with our customer, OpenText. We think this delivers a lot of value to all the customers out there, Devo, or out there in the marketplace, because Devo is a cloud-native logging security analytics solution. You know, the Devo mantra is more data, more confidence, and more clarity for your data to increase your security posture. And we think OpenText is a perfect partner for Devo. They are one of the leaders in digital transformation and information management, helping companies securely capture, govern, and exchange information on a truly global scale. I didn't know a lot about OpenText until they became a Devo customer and we began this partnership. A lot of people probably don't know that 90% of the Fortune 100 companies are OpenText customers. That is a very powerful metric, as well as 40 of 50 of the largest supply chains run OpenText, and over $9 trillion in annual commerce goes over the OpenText network. So this is really a partnership that goes together like milk and cookies. Certainly OpenText leverages Devo as part of their log management solution. And they have been able to use the platform and its capabilities to help them and other customers score higher on the MITRE ATT&CK evaluations. And that's what the topic is today. I just wanted to briefly plug one of the fairly recent Devo developments, and that is the MITRE ATT&CK Advisor application. This is an application that's been out for about 6 months, maybe a little bit more. It is available on the Devo Exchange for download and available to all of Devo customers at no extra charge. What it does is it gives you an overview into the tactics and techniques that you are covered on for the MITRE ATT&CK framework. It's not just good for showing you what coverage you have, but more importantly, what coverage you don't have. So if you are missing data sources, it is a great way to visually quickly check to see what data sources you need to add before you can even begin to develop a defense against some of the tactics and techniques of the MITRE ATT&CK framework. And OpenText is going to elaborate on how you can use this as well as some of their tools, technology, people, and processes to increase your coverage on the MITRE ATT&CK framework. And with that, I will turn it over to Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Adam, for going through that. You gave a better introduction on OpenText than I usually do, so I appreciate that. Like Adam talked about, we really want to go over what the MITRE ATT&CK managed detection and response evaluation was. We want to kind of go through the, exactly what happened on the MITRE ATT&CK, and just to kind of run through the agenda. We already done introductions. I always like to start off all of my presentations with just a few industry stats. I won't go through all of them, but I always think it's good to kind of understand what the business problem is and how we're trying to solve that business problem, right? And then walking through that solution and how it does solve that business problem that we identified earlier. Just want to walk through setting the stage, incident response workflow, kind of running through the adversaries that are out there, kind of the war room and communications as it relates to how OpenText does that, and then elements of a breach. So again, I just wanted to start with a couple statistics. 95% of cybersecurity breaches are caused by the human error. That's kind of been there since the beginning, right? Clicking on a phishing email or accidentally, creating a very simple password or whatever the case may be. 230,000 new malware samples are produced every single day. Why is that important? Because a lot of platforms are developed on IOCs, indicator of compromise. Why is that a problem? If 230,000 new malware samples are created every single day, that means that you're already behind the game of 230,000 because they just got created each and every single day, and an IOC hasn't been developed for that. We really rely very heavily on our TTPs, and that'll show very prevalent as we go through this. But again, if you're an IOC shop, you are not going to be able to keep up with over 230,000 new malware variants every single day that you'll have to go through, right? And manage that. It's a nightmare. And then again, 75% of companies infected with ransomware were running up-to-date antivirus protection. Like I said, we're actually going through a breach right now where one of the customers only had EPP and didn't realize that when it comes, you really need that EDR and the EPP solution. So again, running up-to-date antivirus protection is part of that cyber hygiene, but it's not the only solution for that cyber hygiene. Again, I just want to spend a second on dwell time. That's how long an attack or a hacker is in your network before they get detected, right? So in 2019, that dwell time was around 99 days that an attacker was in the network before it got detected. And in 2020, that dwell time went down to 56 days. I don't think that was because we did anything better. I think it's because of lack of visibility and the lack of detection that was on the enterprise network. Because as you can see, in 2021, the dwell time goes back up to 280 days that an attacker has been in your network before they were detected. That's a problem. That's a significant problem. And some of the reason for that problem is going to be IOCs, right? If you're an IOC shop, you're only detecting on indicators of compromise. You're not detecting on TTPs. So we wanted to go over the participants that participated in the MITRE ATT&CK evaluation. There were 16 vendors that participated into the MITRE ATT&CK evaluation. Clearly, OpenText was one of them. We just wanted to talk about, how if your vendor that you're either currently using or thinking about evaluating are not on that slide, you'd really want to understand why that is, right? You want to understand why did they not participate into that evaluation, and just understand, what were the drivers or lack thereof for not participating in that. But as you can see in those particular slides, or in those customers, that there were pretty significant customers like Microsoft and CrowdStrike, right, that participated in that. Palo Alto, Rapid7, Sophos. What we really wanted to highlight is that we had 100% detections and 0 false positives. We were the only vendor that had 0 false positives. No other vendor can say that. A lot of them, and I really encourage you to go to the actual website, to download the report. MITRE has a very good website where you can go down into that particular participant and go into their reported report, and you can download that report of what they submitted to MITRE, and you can actually see all of the details from what each participant did. So when you see in some of the other vendors, you're gonna see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of false positives, and you're gonna see those false positives get generated. We had 0 false positives. We only detected on real-time detection, and what we're gonna walk through that is a lot of that had to do with the team, but then our tools, right? Like Adam talked about, we use Devo as our main SIM, right? Having all of that come into the source of truth and have everything come into that. We're able to do that cross-correlation, and we're able to get into that deep analytics to be able to do these detections on the fly. So I just wanted to walk through what MITRE did is they went through oil rig, APT-34. APT-34 is an Iranian threat group, targets the Middle East and international victims, and it targets sectors are usually financial, government, energy, chemical, and telecommunications. I think one of the important things on this is that we didn't know the actual time, when they were going to do these attacks. What MITRE did is it was a week in duration that they were going to run through these attacks, and we were going to inside those 5 days is when they were going to do their attacks. We didn't know when. We didn't know when they were going to start. We didn't know when they were going to produce actual noise, meaning not threats, but producing kind of like what would normal traffic be. Again, that's why we detected 0 false positives, because we understand and we have behavior-based detections. So we're not detecting threats when there are no threats. We're not creating those false positives. And just to set the stage, what MITRE did is they used an Azure environment, and they set up a SQL server, a Windows 2019 server, an Active Directory domain server, an Exchange server, and a MS SQL Server 2019 as part of the environment. And that's where they conducted and did their actual red teaming and their breach scenario attack. This is just some of the communications that we went back and forth with the MITRE team, and this is what we do for all of our customers as well. This is just a sample of what we were communicating with MITRE on the who, what, when, where, and why when we saw an actual breach. We put this into a Slack channel. We really believe having that instant communication with the customer is really key when we're going through a breach or a potential breach, to understand exactly what's happening in the environment, to make sure that the customer doesn't know about that environment, and to validate, that certain users or certain activities are what we think that they actually are, and exactly kind of examining what's going on. We really, really like the Slack channel because, like I said, it gives us that instant communications back and forth with the customer and allows us to kind of validate what we're seeing. Fabian?
Yeah, thanks for that, Kevin. And so the one thing I really do want to emphasize, I know Kevin touched on it a little bit, is this particular MITRE evaluation for managed services, it was a blind test. So we didn't know the threat actor. We didn't know any techniques or tactics that they may be doing. Basically, they told us to floor machines. They let us install our components. Like Kevin said, we installed the Devo agent. We did use SentinelOne, which we actually sent the raw data back into Devo as well. And so Devo was the core data place where we were parsing all the data, writing our correlations, writing our TTPs within it. And so that's where it's different from the enterprise side, right? When you do the enterprise MITRE evaluations, they tell you the piece of malware or the threat actor they're going to do, so you can prepare for it. While we were doing it blindly. So moving into that, it was a week-long test, like Kevin said. So Monday morning, we had all our stuff installed on there. It within to protect the environment. So we treated it as an actual client on how we treat our clients with how we notify them, et cetera, instead of just throwing every single alert at them, which, like Kevin said, we encourage you to go pull down the actual raw content from all the other vendors, and you can see how many false positives were provided to their clients. But on Monday was the initial infection vector. Since we had our Devo agent on there, we identified it within 30 seconds of it alerting. So we have PPPs that will actually alert on users that click on phishing emails, and this was actually a spear phishing email that was very targeted for them to be able to detect that, where it's going out, pulling down the file, where it ran the script to uncompress it, and it was actually password protected that they had built in. So we alerted on that, and so what you see here on the screen is the actual raw, the original phishing email that was used, that they used to click on it. Our team was able to go in there, and so we picked this up with all of our EDR agent, the masquerading, so where they had a malicious macro when they ran it. It dropped 2 files, so one of them was a b.doc. So the masquerading is that they just, once the Word document closes, it gets converted to an executable, is what you see on the top right hand of your screen. And then it also does persist, which created a scheduled task. And so we were actually able to use the Devo agent to pull off this particular file for our team to do analysis on the back end. And on the lower right-hand side, you can just see a little bit of manual analysis that we did, where we pulled out the raw macro for us to see, and see the masquerading, can call it out, and the scheduled task. Secondly, is wanted to really show here is the reconnaissance phase. Again, what you see on the top left is actually what you see within Devo. Using the Devo agent, we were able to collect all the raw telemetry, so we could see them doing the who am I commands, the IP configs commands, checking the registry key to see if it's set up so that they could RDP into the box. And so it was great to see that instantly within Devo, we were firing off on every single command that they showed here within 30 seconds, and we were able to alert the client in real time with true actionable activity that the threat actor is doing as well. And then the back end is just simply showing you the nice graphical view of the process listing on what was happening on that particular. Hopefully this sounds a little bit better. Okay, and so what you see here is we see credential dumping. So this was phase 2 of their attack on Tuesday, and what they did is they pushed down an additional payload package using side twist, and they ran it. So it's actually called b.exe. They ran it on the endpoint so that they could get their Windows Vault credentials, as well as any browser history. And so this is actually where they stored the output into a particular file. We were able to grab that file using our Devo agent, pull it back. It was a simple SQLite database where we could actually parse it out. And what you see it here is where it was telling you their email URL plus the user account, as well as the password that they used to log in. So knowing this, our team was able to adapt and write additional content, knowing that they had compromised this account with this user has now been compromised. And then so in that afternoon, they go dark again for a couple hours, then they come up again, and now we're starting to see them where they're uploading files using side twist onto the infected endpoint. Using the stolen credentials, they actually move laterally onto the Exchange server, and then they drop a web shell called Two-Face, which is also related to oil rig, which also wanted to note that we identified oil rig within the first few hours. After the phishing email, we had a good understanding that it was oil rig, and then everything else we could just pick up as part of the oil rig campaign, which is APT34. But here's an example of what we were able to pick up using the Devo agent, is the actual command line of them actually copying over the contact.aspx file, which is really the Two-Face web shell that's part of oil rig's MO. And then in the background, you'll see the standard raw telemetry feeds that you're going to see within how it looks within the Devo SIM. Here's an example of the web shell that we're able to pull off just to show the full functionality of it. So basically, it lets you upload, you can do new files, you can initiate commands, etc. on it. There's a lot of capabilities within this web shell. Moving on to Wednesday, I know Kevin touched on this before about how we had no false positives. It's true. When we met with MITRE, they actually said that up till that point, they actually had to create a new slide when we did our hot wash with them, that we were the only one not to report any false positives within, especially on that day. That day, they did a lot of interesting white noise. They were doing Kerber roasting. They were rebuilding their SQL server to try to generate some false positives, but none of it was related to the compromised account that we identified or any malicious activity that we were seeing from the threat actor, which MITRE was actually able to confirm for us. And so we do encourage people to go look at what we provided to MITRE, and you'll see all of it was actionable activity that we did provide to them. Kevin, anything that you want to add on to this that I may have missed?
Well, just, like I talked about, the false positives are the issue in the industry, right? If you look at 76% of alerts in the industry are false positives, and you don't get through over 80% of those. So like having all those alerts, like we talked about, having all those false positives in there are literally causing you not to be able to get to the actual threats, and allowing that attacker, when we go back to that dwell time, to actually be in your network without being detected because you can't get to it because you have so many false positives that shouldn't be being created. So like I said, we just really believe heavily on there's a time and a place for an IOC, indicator of compromise, but you really need to live in the TTB-based behavior detections. Back to you, Fabian.
Awesome, cool. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, and we've seen that's one of the problems in industry right now is alert fatigue, and we can't emphasize enough with the raw telemetry we're able to pull in with the Devo agent as well as with the Devo SIM to be able to do correlations and looking at that to be able to apply our TTPs. We've really been able to bring down the amount of false positives within our environments. It allows us to tune it in a quick, easy fashion, and so it's been very beneficial to all of our clients. Moving on to Thursday is when they started up activity again. So now we see the threat actors on Exchange again. We actually pull in our IIS logs on our Exchange servers in our actual clients, as we do here on this MITRE test. So you can see where we pull in the raw content using the fetch files feature that's part of the Devo agent. It gives us some great visibility. We can see who's connecting to it. We were able to know what they actually had to use the compromised account. So we had alerts firing off automatically on that as well. So we could see the compromised account using that username and password to log in to be able to access this contact.aspx, which again was the Two-Face web shell. We could see them hitting it, issuing commands, and then also using the agent, we were able to pull up the raw command line telemetry, which you can see on the bottom part of it where they were running the who am I again, ipconfig, netstat to gather reconnaissance information on the Exchange server. And then we did see them run Mimikatz, so they actually uploaded Mimikatz using the Two-Face web shell. dumped it. We were able to extract the actual file that they dumped it to see all the content. What you see on the left-hand side is that we saw that they pulled the LTMM hash. So being able to adapt, our team suspected when they moved laterally again that they would use Mimikatz and use past the hash to move on to another system. So we were able to write content around that. And coming to Friday, this is where they finish up their final exaltation and lateral movement. But we actually did see that. And so what you actually see on this particular slide is how we were highlighting that is with our deep visibility with the Devo agent, we were able to actually see the NTLM hash that they used. We had content alerting on it. So these are actually two of our alerts that we wrote, which you see on the screen. We did a print pretty so you could be able to see the hashes to compare them that they're the same. But that's where on the fly, just because of this visibility that we're able to have with the Devo Sim and Devo agent, we were able to write the specialized content and adapt during the evaluation on this to be able to alert on it. And then one tidbit of information, I apologize if Kevin already talked about this, but one of the rules in this MITRE evaluation, because we get asked all the time when we're showing these slides, is if we see it, how come we didn't stop it at the very beginning? That was part of the rules, is not to block or hinder the attack sequence from the MITRE red team. We could only notify them, but in practice, we would have seen the phishing email, we would have remediated it, we would have stopped site twists right then and there. We would have pulled the phishing email, removed it from the inboxes, and cleaned up the network. So essentially, we would have wrapped all this up within 5 minutes. But part of the rules of engagement is that we had to let them continue going on for each step throughout the week till the end of it. And so that's why we were able to show how we can adapt, how we identify it, etc. Moving on to some more lateral movements. So from here, they upload ps-exec onto an exchange using the two-phase web shell to interact with the machine. We see them using ps-exec and pass the hash to move on to the SQL server. And on the SQL server, they actually drop an RDAT backdoor, which is also part of Oil Rigs MO to use this. They did some masquerading to rename it to VMware.exe on that particular system, which we were able to pick up and catch it with our deep visibility that we have within our Devo Sim. And then from there, we were actually able to identify, they did some lightweight steganography in this particular one. It wasn't true steg where they were flipping bits within the file. What they did is they attached the contents to the end of it, sent it out, and then removed the contents. And so we were able to identify this activity that was happening on the particular SQL server. But this was actually the raw commands that we could see them exfiltrating the data on the SQL server. So basically they got the SQL server backup file, attached it to those images, and sent it out in chunks over email. And so this was the raw telemetry command line that we were able to pick up using the Devo agent and alert to it within our Devo Sim on this attack. Lastly, we were able to collect email transaction logs using our fetch files component of the Devo agent. And so we were able to pull in these flat files. And so then we were able to correlate the command where they issued the command to send out emails of exfiltration to the actual transaction logs on the Exchange server, which we're showing you here. I just had to blur out where it was going to and who was sending it out, but we could tie it back to the compromised account plus, as well as where the exfil site was going to, and the exfil site actually tied back to the phishing email as well. With that, I will turn it back over to Kevin or Shannon to finish this up.
All righty. Thank you, presenters. You all did an awesome job. At this point, if anyone does have any questions and answers, I can give you 1 minute here to drop it into the Q&A chat, and then we can start to go over them. I can start with some of the questions we have here in front of me. This would likely be a question for Adam. what do the different colored alerts within the MITRE ATT&CK advisor signify? Adam, are you online? I do have the answer for this, so I can just read it as well. So with the different colored alerts within the MITRE ATT&CK advisor, red denotes a lack of detections for the tactic, yellow denotes moderate coverage, and green means you have had good coverage. Let's see if we have any others rolling in. And then a question for the OpenText team. Besides helping to score higher on MITRE ATT&CK evaluations, how else has OpenText been able to leverage Devo? Not sure who wants to take that one.
I think I'll take it, and then Fabian, if you want to come over top of what I missed. I think, you know, just having Devo as our SIM to be able to kind of look back historically, or to kind of have all of the telemetry that we need to make that analysis kind of readily available to us, and in very quick fashion. And then I just think the correlation, right? You know, having the EDR telemetry come in, having the proxy and firewall logs, and then, you know, the ability, you know, the thing that Devo really has is the ability to bring in any other log type, right? I mean, I think there's over 450 parsers today that you guys have in your library, but, you know, we've never waited more than 36 hours for a log parser, if you don't have it, to be written for us. So just having that ability to kind of bring in any log source, because not everyone's dealing with your typical commercial log sources, just having that ability and then that correlation capability to kind of correlate the EDR telemetry into the proxy log to be able to validate that kind of workflow in or out really gives us that powerful analytics that we need within very fast and quick time. Fabian, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One of them is, I'll say, the multi-tenancy is huge. It really has helped us in a lot of our clients, especially at the MSP level, and being able to have that hierarchy has really been beneficial. The other thing is all the APIs that Devo does have exposed so that we can automate building out new clients, et cetera, has been huge for us. And then lastly, a huge shout out to Juan and Paco for all the good work that they've done on the Devo agent, and being able to give us a good framework that we've been able to go in and really enhance our clients' deep visibility on the endpoints. And so hugely grateful and thankful for all of that.
Thank you both for those answers. Again, a more technical question about the MITRE ATT&CK advisor. This would probably be for Adam as well. How many detections are pre-built within the MITRE ATT&CK advisor? I know Adam was having trouble with his mic. I can answer this one though. So Devo's actually released over 200 new detections just this year in the SciSec team, and they're continuing to add new detections. And then also with Devo's Content Manager, you can increase coverage with new detection by simply just clicking that button. And you can do this by going into the Content Manager, searching the detection you're looking for, and you can install it right then and there. And then you'll be able to see the change in your coverage in the Advisor app. Okay. Let me see if any other questions are coming through. Alrighty, I do not see any others. I think that is it. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you OpenText team for joining us today. You guys did an awesome job, and this will be posted after the fact as well. But thank you everyone for joining and all of our presenters.